Finally, there is a wide-angle lens for the Pocket 2 that you can use ND filters with. You'd imagine that someone would have worked it out way earlier than this because the original Osmo Pocket has been around for quite a few years already. But hey, better late than never. The question is, are these lenses any good? And more importantly, are they worth the money? So you can now buy from Freewell a bundle that includes just the wide-angle lens and a 7Ds for around $50, or the wide-angle lens, a 7Ds and an anamorphic lens for around $100. That's a fair bit of money given the tiny size of these lenses, so I wanted to make this review to prove whether they're worth it or a complete waste of money. At least I can tell you that you get something that has been specifically created with the Pocket 2 in mind, and that alone makes me think that you'll get a decent bit of equipment. I mean, what's the point of going out of your way to create something like this if it's of poor or bad quality? It would be silly, really. Freewell has come up with this new system in which you fit the customized NDs that come with the lens at the back of the actual lens, either the wide-angle lens or the anamorphic lens. And yes, you get to use the NDs also with the anamorphic lens because they're both designed the same way, and that is really cool. Now, a word of warning though, if the NDs for the Pocket 2 were already difficult to handle because of their small size, these are even worse. They're so small that it's a bit of a mission to get them on and off. Clever design, yes, I'll give them that, but a bit of a pain to use. Forget about changing filters in a rush. I never seem to be able to get them lined up correctly the first time, no matter what I do or how I do it. One thing's for sure, you need to make sure that you have a cleaning cloth on hand, because there is no chance that you'll be able to get these filters on or off without any fingerprints on. Don't be fooled by any videos telling you that they are easy to use on location, with wind, noise, probably a far from ideal environment to be changing filters. I find it difficult, if not impossible, not to touch the glass element. One thing that I really like is the fact that the text on each of them now is larger than in the standard filters that they sell, which sometimes I personally struggle to read even with glasses on. It's nice to be able to actually read which filter is which now. And just as we talk about standard ND filters, don't get rid of any of those standard ND filters that you might have invested money on. You'll still need them. The ND filters that come with these lenses or lens, depending on which package you buy, they only work with these specific lenses. You won't be able to use them with the Pocket 2 standard lens. This is worth mentioning because you'll need to take with you always different ND filters for the standard lens and the wide or anamorphic lens. It really is not a big deal, but worth keeping in mind, especially if you want to change lenses quickly. If you already have your own set of ND filters and also the DJI wide-angle lens that comes with the Creatives combo, you might want to check out a video I recently did about a hack for using ND filters with that particular lens. It won't work with all the filters, as some filters seem to have the polarization reversed and the lens just won't stick to it, but it works with many of them and it might just save you in a pinch. This system, on the other hand, the optical quality of the wide angle is really good and very similar to DJI's wide angle, with the advantage that with the Freewell system, it allows you to use ND filters that are designed specifically for these lenses. And of course, I leave a link below in the description if you're interested in them. The examples I'm going to show you now are relevant to both the wide angle lens and the anamorphic lens, because both give you the ability to use the ND filters that come with it. Let's take them for a ride and check if you actually get good value for money.
When we wake, hear the birds and see the sun. Side by side our fears are done. All the good times just begun. We know what we have, let's hold on tight. Found what we're looking for in life. Call us crazy, but things are finally right. With you and I, the future is bright.
The biggest question is, why would you need ND filters in the first place? If you don't already know this, there are plenty of videos explaining this. I'm just gonna show you some examples of the difference between not using an ND filter and then using one. Pay attention to how different the motion is. In this example, for instance, without ND filters, you can clearly see that every car looks super sharp. To me, it kind of feels wrong. And if I show you a freeze frame, you can clearly see that everything in the image is sharp. This is not how we perceive the world around us. In this other example using ND filters, you can see how much natural the motion is, and if I do a freeze frame again, you can see that the edges of all moving objects have motion blur, which is how we actually perceive the world around us. This effect is also obvious when you walk around people. Notice how choppy and unnatural it feels having everything and everyone so sharp. It kind of feels unnatural. On the other hand, when you use ND filters, everything feels much more natural, and in a way, it feels less aggressive and way more pleasant to the eye. If you're into vlogging, this is also very important because the difference between using and not using NDs is really obvious, especially when you move your hands, and it will happen more often than you think. It goes without saying that having a wider focal length will give you much more dynamic shots, and this is especially obvious when you vlog because you really want as wide field of view as possible behind you. Moving from the standard 20mm to a 50mm focal length can be the difference between things looking just about okay to looking good. You can always use a mini tripod to attach the Pocket 2 on, and that will give you an even wider field of view. And in my opinion, it makes a massive difference. Not just hold the Pocket 2 on your arms, but to actually attach it to a mini pod, as I'm doing now. And by doing so, you get a much natural posture and you can focus much more on what you have to say without having to worry about having something on your arm that you get tired with. Personally, I think that for vlogging, this is the ideal setup. It's small, fits pretty much anywhere, and you get the functionality of using the large screen from your smartphone, something we all pretty much carry with us these days. You might want to check the link above for a recent video I created comparing the DJI Pocket 2 to the iPhone 12 Pro Max, in which I specifically talk about this. I already mentioned earlier that you can't use the filters that come with this wide-angle lens with a standard 20mm lens. On the other hand, what I'm really pleased to say is that the autofocus, when using either the wide lens or the anamorphic, is not affected whatsoever and it works perfectly. I always worry when I stack adapters in front of a lens that something might throw off the autofocus in one way or another. So it's nice to know that that's not the case here. One thing that you'll need to consider whether you use the lens from DJI or this lens is barrel lens distortion or the fisheye effect. It's unavoidable, it happens with the lens from DJI, and unfortunately this lens also suffers from it. It's quite obvious if you film tall buildings or anything that shows vertical pose or structures such as boats, street signs or similar. In all fairness, it's not such a big deal, just simply apply a lens correction filter in post and you'll be okay. Unfortunately, there is no way around it. At this budget level, all wide lenses will have some sort of barrel lens distortion. Only lenses for high-end cameras like the RE8R will have no lens distortion, but that lens alone will set you back $45,000 and is for cameras that cost around $70,000 to $80,000 or more, and the Pocket 2 is obviously nowhere near that league. Like I said, just apply a lens correction effect, and even though you lose a little bit of field of view, the lens distortion will be gone and the image will look amazing. Now, in terms of edge distortion, I'm pleased to say that there is just a little around the very edge of the lens, but it doesn't render the lens unusable. You can see from this focus chart that the image goes a little soft around the edges, but in the real world, you can't really tell. Overall, the optical quality is really good for either the wide angle and the anamorphic lens. Now, if you're into stylized footage and more into the whole cinematic looks, the anamorphic lens is exactly what you're after. The quality is phenomenal with little edge distortion, and as you can imagine, you get those lovely lens flares that are so distinctive of anamorphic lenses. If you're into ultra-wide aspect ratios and creating cinematic footage, you'll be so happy with this, because by shooting anamorphic, the image might look a bit squeezed in when you view it in the Mimo app, but with a 1:15 this squeeze ratio in post, the image will look amazing. And even though you still get the top and bottom bars, you're actually using the whole sensor and not discarding 20 to 25% of your frame as you do when you use standard lenses. This is what happens when you shoot at the normal 16:9 aspect ratio with the standard aspherical lenses and then add bars at the top and bottom. You are literally throwing away a quarter of your image. With anamorphic lenses, you're using 100% of the sensor, and that makes a massive difference to the overall image quality. There is a slight color shift with this lens, but honestly, this is so easy to fix in the gray that I think it's pretty much irrelevant. The advantage that you get in image quality if you are after the anamorphic look, it's quite significant. If on the other hand, all you do is the standard 16:9 aspect ratio and you don't have use for the anamorphic look, like for instance, if you do vlogging or live TV type of content, then I would suggest that you save yourself a few dollars and just buy the wide angle lens with the ND filters. I hope you liked this video and found it useful. If you did, don't forget to smash the like button. It's all about the YouTube algorithm these days. It will help the video getting some traction. At the end of the video, I leave a couple of suggestions that I think you might like. Please feel free to leave in the comments below any ideas for videos that you might want me to do in the future. It goes without saying, hit the subscribe button if you like the content, and I'll see you in the next video.